This Zoom call was originally planned for venues in our South East network, but due to the great interest in this topic, we're really delighted to welcome a number of guests representing a wide section of the contemporary visual arts sector from other English regions. So we particularly wanted a European perspective and to learn from the experience of countries that have already begun to reopen their museums and galleries. So I'm really thrilled to welcome David Vuillaume and to learn from his experience as director of the German Museums Association and chair of the network of European Museums organisations. So thank you so much, David, for joining us today. As everyone knows, we've prepared some initial questions. So in the first part of the meeting, the intention is to go through those questions and hear David's experience, and then to open up the meeting, although it's going to be a challenge for so many people, into a more of a discussion, enabling you to sort of follow up. So I'll do my best. And we'll go on to the first questions. So, David, can you tell us what factors have informed the timing for a phased return of visitors to German institutions?
Thank you first, Joanne, for the invitation and for this introduction words. Thank you, Oliver, also for the invitation. Before I come with to the factors and the specificity of Germany, I just want to say two things. First of all, I'm not a museum director. It's important to know what is my status. So I have an overview about the situation in Germany and in Europe. I have an experience in network communication with museums and with public authorities, but I don't know exactly how it is working in the daily life in a specific museum. So you have to translate my words in your daily practice. And I'm trying to be so precise, so practical as possible, but I'm not a museum director. I think that's important just to know what is my status. And when I speak about translation, concerning translation, I hope you will put up with my Frenchy accent. I'm the director of the German Museum Association, but I'm not German and I'm not French either. I'm a Swiss citizen, just for to understand maybe why my accent is not very German. German is my working language. About your question, the factors which have informed the timing for the phased return of visitors to German institutions, there are a lot of factors. One of them is that just before the lockdown, the German Museum had implemented already some protection measures. The limited numbers of visitors, for example, the disinfectant offer was already there 2-3 weeks before the lockdown. So it was very helpful to have a limited but a certain experience in that regard to reopen museum. We were kind of ready, or we had tried already before how it is to open a museum with strictly conditions. Another reason for the soon reopening is the regional political organization of the country. You know, probably Germany has 16 regions, the Länder in German, which are responsible for health policies. So not the central government. The federal government invites or have invited a lot of time the ministers of the Länders of the 16 countries. They spoke together, they try to coordinate their action, but it is always up to the Länders to decide what they want to organize. So the northeast of Germany was and is not really affected by the virus. So these regions, so Brandenburg, it's near Berlin, if you know Germany a little bit, and Thüringen have decided very soon to allow museum to reopen in April. In April, 1 month ago and 1 week now, because these region was not affected. So that would be completely impossible, for example, in other countries, like in other countries. And a thing I would say I say the museum were allowed to reopen, not everywhere, but in the Northeast already at the end of April. To be allowed to reopen doesn't mean to reopen. So we counted 550 museums on the 17th of May. It was the International Museum Day, as you know. And we counted all the museums which were open. So it's not a lot, because Germany, you know that, has the largest museum landscape in Europe with approximately 7,000 institutions. But we have every day more museums that open again, and we are expecting that all museums will be reopened at the end of the summer. A big, I would say, half of the museum will be opened in June or at the end of June, and the rest at the end of the summer for museums who are expecting and who are living by the tourism. Another reason, I have a lot of reasons, but it's very important to know what. Another reason is, I think it's an important one, is the advocacy work of the German Museum Association. Not because I'm proud of that and because I'm the director of the German Museum Association, but really I saw how in this crisis the voice of the network could have an impact. We communicated in April already, very early, with the museums and with the authorities about the reopening. So we praised, of course, the online communication of the museum. We communicate, of course, also about the difficult economic situation of private museums and about the precarious situation of freelance workers in the education department, especially. That was, of course, very important for us to be the voice of the problems, but we privileged very soon a very positive communication about the reopening. And that was for the museum a kind of motivation. The message for the museums was be prepared, focus on the reopening very concretely. We did a list of measures, very practical. For example, we asked museum in April already to order protective screens because the delivery time was every day longer. So if you decide today to order so these plexiglass screens, you have to wait 3 or 4 weeks. So it's and sometimes more. The plexiglass is a new toilet paper, was said 3 weeks ago. That was the communication for the museums. And for the authorities, for the cultural authorities, so for us it's complicated because we have to speak with the Federal Cultural Ministry. It's not officially a ministry, but it's like a ministry, and communicate with 16 ministries of these regions. The message was, we had 2 messages. The first was to say we can do it, we are safe, and we can help stop the spread of the coronavirus because but we can do it because we have a certain experience, and our audience is educated audience, so we can do it. We know how to do it. And the second message for the authorities were always to say we are a basic public service. Actually, and it's our main communication line today, we say we shouldn't have been closed. In other words, the next pandemic could come, we don't know, of the virus, of this virus or another virus or another crisis. We should be ready for the next crisis and ideally not close the museum. I mean, we didn't close the museum during the war, the Second World War, and we close museums now during tragic pandemic, but actually next time, it's our vision. I mean, we don't know exactly what will happen, but our vision is next time we shouldn't close.
Okay.
That was a list of main reasons, and I think the mixture of all these reasons explain why Germany was actually the first country in the world to reopen its museums.
Thank you, that's brilliant. And leads on, I think, really well in terms of communications to the second question. Thinking about communications, what lessons do you have for us about their public messaging around this process, both online and on site? Clearly it's complex picture, messaging directly to the authorities and to the regions. Can you expand on messaging to the public?
Yeah, so lessons it's a little bit earlier to have really lessons. It's in progress, of course. I would say on the communication level, the only positive aspect of this tragic health crisis is, but I think it's exactly the same in the UK, is the reactivity of the museum on the communication level. Reactivity, it means they tried very early after the shutdown to stay in touch with their audiences, and provided and developed a lot of online offers. That was, maybe for you it's obvious, but in Germany, you know, the museums are public institutions, not very agile in the administration. They don't have, a lot of German museums haven't the possibility to work from home, for example. And despite of that, the communication with the audience was from the beginning very, very active. Of course, it doesn't generate any revenues, but these online offers gave the impression to the public that they are important. And at the same time, the public, the audience, were prepared to come back to the museums. Of course, we have a lot of people that are very afraid of personal contacts in the train or etc. So these people are not coming back, but there was a core of people that were really expecting the date, and they were on the first day, the first hour in the front of museums. So it was a great communication, always to say, you are important to us. It's very simple, but in Germany it was very, very new. And these online offers that were developed by the German Museum were very simple. It was not so huge project with augmented reality or I don't know which kind of online visit. It was simple contact on social media, really to have the contact. It was inexpensive. It hasn't replaced, of course, the materiality of the visit, and it creates an expectation. So that is for me the most important thing I've learned until now about the communication of the museum. The museum hadn't to say the whole time, we want to reopen, just to be there. People know that they cannot open, just to be there, to be very... I just give you an example. The director, a new young director of a big Kunsthalle, a big art museum in Mannheim, tried the second day after the lockdown, that's of the closing of the museum, to make a very small visit in the museum with its mobile phone. It was extremely unprofessional, but it was really, really nice, because people say, okay, we are with you. The director say, we are with you, dear audience, and just to always to be there. That was great.
Sounds really encouraging that people are so keen to go back to the museums. So clearly communication has been very successful. If I can move on to the next question, which is a bit more practical. And obviously we asked this in the context of what you said initially about not being a director of a museum, but to share what you've learned from your colleagues. What are the key safety precautions that German museums have taken, particularly in bottlenecks such as entrances, lifts, stairways, toilets? How have they approached this difficult situation?
First of all, I think it's interesting. This question is very interesting because you speak about lifts, stairways, toilets. Of course, every museum director ask these questions, but the answers were, it's my personal opinion, were in Germany quite liberal, I would say. We are not in Italy, we are not in Spain, we are not in some region of the UK. As I said before, the situation is a tragic situation, but Germany was less affected than other countries, and so it means we don't have big plans for the use of the toilet, for example. We are very careful, of course. We see the risk seriously, of course, but we try to have very simple measures. I don't know if I can share my screen. I think I can do that. I try just to show you. I try just to show you a poster that is used by the museums. I think that could be that. Just try. It's not this poster. I have to try another one. Yes. I don't know if you can read these posters. Maybe too small. I will try like that.
Yes, yeah, we can see that.
And that is a poster that we prepared already in April for the museum. A lot of museums that are open now used it. It's very simple, and that is exactly the thing. We want to stay simple, and as you say, only 3 recommendations are the most important one. As you know, of course, this recommendation is not a question of content now. You know, of course, that avoid touching, maintain sufficient distance, for avoiding forming groups. This is absolutely clear. But for us, it is important just to say that is the most important. You can have a huge list of problems, of specific questions, but if the 3 things are taken into consideration, the 4th is also the mask. But not in every museum you have to have a mouth nose protection. So we have another version of this poster. We say that is the basis, and if you want to do other things, you can, but you don't have to, because the thing become extremely complicated, and at the end, maybe you had already this experience. At the end, the visitors individually, they know how to behave. At least at the beginning, at the reopening, you don't have a huge group of people coming in the museum. They know exactly how to do, because they are already they know how to behave in the public transportation, etc., etc. So we are very liberal, Concretely for the toilet, because I have visited a lot of museums, it's very easy. Every second toilet is closed to have enough distance. It's very easy to do that. So it means just with a poster or closing the cabinets. It's really easy to do. But it was not a big question in Germany. It's why I show you this this poster. Maybe I have another one that is even easier. Yeah, this one. This one, that is a poster for inside the museums. Just the 3 rules. Mm. And the experience now, museums are very happy about that, because they can, with that, with this kind of posters of a recommendation, they can say, we did something, we inform the people, the visitors feel safe, and the authorities are absolutely okay for that. It doesn't mean more, it doesn't need more. So just
cat. Sorry. Trying to get my cat out of the way.
So simple communication, but also simple things, because yes, you know, the population, the people are already afraid of the daily life after the lockdown. If the museum, oh hi,
sorry, still in the show. Yeah, I think.
And if the museum directors or the museum staff are also afraid of opening, you create a very bad atmosphere. Actually, it's the reopening of a museum is not a party, but it's a very positive sign for the end, or for the beginning of the end of the crisis.
Yeah, a return to a sense of normality. And certainly it's really clear, simple messaging, but perhaps different messaging according to areas which are more affected than others. It's very interesting. Moving on in the questions, do you have any particular guidance to help us protect our staff and volunteers, whether front of house or in administrative and technical roles?
Yes, we have a list. The list is not long. We want to have the shortest list as possible. Of course, it's a little bit longer than these 3 recommendations for the visitors. But if I sum up, it's only 3 things. We say, wear a mask, no visitor contact for people at risk. It means older people, people with overweight or with respiratory difficulty, and social distance in the working place. It is very interesting, these social distancing rules. At the beginning, we had 2 meters in Germany as a recommendation. It's not a law, it's not an official regulation. Now, everywhere you read only 1.5 meters. And interesting, yesterday, the Austrian government decided that 1 meter is enough. And I think it will come also to Germany and to other countries like Switzerland or the Netherlands. So 1 meter is quite normal. It's a chair. So it's just a chair between 2 people. So it's yes, it's not. So I hope. I mean, I think always positive, but I think really it's a very important step to normality. And the last thing that is important for the staff, I'm sorry, is not a protection measure, but it's very important after this month of experience. Please smile. Not only for the audience, but also to be, you know, to be back together. Of course, not every worker can come back. For example, here in the German Museum Association, or in the German the museum, the City Museum in Berlin, that is not far away from here. they have only half of the staff that can come back because of the social distancing, and if someone is affected by the COVID-19, the other staff can work, and the half of the staff have to go in quarantine. So there are some this kind of regulation, but actually we have to celebrate that we are together, and yes, and it's a recommendation for us. The crisis will be very long. It's not the end. I mean, the financial crisis is coming, the economic crisis is coming, the budget of the museum, even in Germany, all the museum or 80% are public institutions. We are expecting big cuts. It will be hard. But if we begin now to be depressed, we have to be creative in this crisis. So we begin really, and if you have to wear a mask, it's very specific, but you have to wear a mask and you smile, you have to smile really, really bright, you know, to be seen on the eyes.
Yeah, that's a real challenge.
It is.
What conclusions can we take from the German experience regarding the resumption of live events, tours, and educational workshops?
That is a very big question, but it's our biggest challenge. We don't have any conclusion. We don't know how and when it will be possible to have live events, to have tour, to have educational workshops. I mean, it's possible now to have individual tours, so really VIP tours or family tours. They are available in some museums, but they are not very communicated very broadly because we don't want to have a line on the front of the museum door. Small groups are also possible if you have the technical devices. You know, there's these devices that have been used for big groups when two groups were parallelly proposing the same room. These devices are very practical. If you have a group of 10 people, for example, they can have a big distance. And the guide can speak normally without to shout, but we really don't know. It can be, we don't know. I'm sorry, but it's a big question mark when we can begin with big live events and festivals and yeah. I have seen, just an example, I've seen today a very dramatic photography, or as a dramatic, one of the biggest theater in Berlin. They have removed half of the chairs. But you know, the chairs in a theater, like in an opera, they are very fixed chairs in an old theater. They have removed half of that. It was a huge work to prepare for the reopening. They don't know when they can reopen. And if they do that, it means that they are not planning to refix all the chairs and the seats. And it's dramatic because when you see this huge place with only some chairs, so they have a line with one seat and double seat, one seat, double seat, because it will be only possible to have for one person or for two persons, but you cannot be a group of four, something like that. It's I was like shocked by this picture because I say, okay, so it won't be easy. It can, of course, the theater have a biggest problem than the museums because they need a big audience and people on the stage that are very very close to each other. But yes, we don't know. We don't know. That is a very negative point.
Yeah, the challenge is enormous.
Yeah.
We'll go to the final question, because I think it'd be really positive to open this up to sort of more of a general question. So do you have any advice on developing a template COVID-19 risk assessment for public museums and galleries?
We did it. We did, as we have two tools. We have the checklist for reopening. I can show you it if you want. Try that. Where is my checklist? I try that. Sorry. No. Sorry, it's very. That is the poster of International Museum Day, so it's nothing to do with. Here. That is. I try to open it. It's not a very long list. It's in German, of course. That is, yes, this list. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So again,
18 recommendations. There's really a lack of checklist. Every museum, it's a very simple question, but if you say you have to limit the number of your visitors, every institution have to find out how many visitors it means. If they want to have a visitor for 10 square meters, or if they want to decide another number. So, but it's a very simple checklist. And what I want to show you is another thing. It's a checklist or assessment list we did. I hope, yes, this one we did before I try to make it bigger, before the lockdown. Because as a museum association, we organized a lot of meetings, and we tried to have also a very simple tool of assessment of the risk, Risikoeinschätzung, the risk, with 3, but it's a self-assessment. We asked, it was interesting, we asked the regional and the federal authorities for health if they could tell us if this risk assessment is okay or not. And they were not allowed to write something and say, yes, that is official, it's officially yes or no. They called us and they said, yeah, that's okay, you can work like that, but it cannot be official. And I think that's okay. Every institution have to make the self-assessment. So just to, I don't want to translate everything, but we have the first group of questions is the profile of the people, of the visitors, if they are old, if they are, the profile and the setting also of the visitors. No, the profile is important. If you, then we have the second block is the kind of possible contact. If it's a workshop, of course, the interaction are much more higher. And at the end, the third part is the risk of the place. For example, if the place is at a good ventilation, if the place is disinfected, the stairs, is a place a clean place with a specific cleaning routine, and then we can have the risk 0, 1, or 2 with color, and at the end we could know if we are in the green, in the yellow, or in the red. And we used that before, and we forgot that during the crisis, and now this simple chart is asked very often by the museum. They want to use it. It's just a self-assessment, but I think we can really have a good contribution. If you are in the green, you can really say, okay, we can. If you have just children or very young people, the risk is not the same for contamination, for example. It's only what I can offer. It's not a lot, but it's what.
Fantastic to see an example. And yeah, it's very interesting to hear your comments about the authorities not wanting to give an official response.
I don't know how it is. I'm keen to listen to hear about your situation, your fears, but here it's not possible to have the the stamp or the official okay by no.
Well, we're 38 minutes into the call, so I'd like to open it up now to broader discussion. This could be difficult because I've got everyone across 2 pages. So if you've got a question, if you can raise your hand or shout. Liz Gilmore, and Ollie, are you able to unmute people and then people take control of their own muting process?
Yes, just bear with me. Okay,
right.
That's unmuting Liz. Oh, yeah, there we go. Liz is unmuted.
Right.
Hi.
Liz, go ahead.
You can hear, it's all right. I mean, really fascinating, and thank you so much, David, for going through everything. One thing that I'm really interested in as a charging gallery is the financials relating, because a consideration for us is balancing the absolute shared vision to reopen. It was with such sadness we shut the doors, but balancing that with the viability of reopening financially, because with social distancing and those kinds of measures, we potentially will lose money by opening the doors earlier rather than later. And I wondered whether you had any experience of the financial impact that way, and what happened in Germany relating to that, whether you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's clear. The reopening of every museum, if it's a small village museum or a big museum, the cost of the reopening is higher than the normal days, because you need more people, you need more more people for the control of the behavior of the visitors. You need so the costs are, and you need more materials, so security, mask, etc. And the number of visitors is not very high. In big museum, like in small museum, we have now at something like 20% of the normal numbers. The thing is, as I said before, 80% of the museums in Germany are largely financed by public money. They are not all public institutions, but they are financed by public money. So they are not struggling to survive. They don't have to lay off staff currently, at least, and they can take, I would say, some risk for the reopening. Not all the museums. The big state museums in Berlin, for example, that really they live really from the tourism industry, are closed, are still closed, because even if they are the loss they have every month is 700,000 euro every month. So now it's a 6/7 week. I mean, it's, and they are a public institution, but they have more than 50% of their revenue are the revenues of the tourists. So it is very difficult, but we have two public helps. We have a fund of 20 million. It's not a lot of money, 20 million euro, but just to help museum to buy all the material that they need for the signs on the floor, or the plexiglass, the disinfectant things. That is emergency help for the museums. 10 millions have been already spent, and the 10 next million are open for next week from the federal government. And we are expecting, not only for the museum, but for the rest of the cultural sector, a fund of 500 million euro to support the museum, not just now at an emergency situation, but from the end of this year and next year. Because the hard, so we are expecting hard times next year. So for us, the end of the crisis will be the beginning of 2022. It's hard to say that, maybe it's too negative, but we have to prepare. Next year will be difficult. The budget 2020 stay the same. The public authorities, they have to pay attention, but some museums became official letter of the ministries to tell them that they have to pay all the invoices, even for people that couldn't work, catering organization or freelance worker. So this year is okay, but next year will be hard. Okay. So I know it's absolutely the same situation in the UK. We don't have a lot of museums that are self-financed. Yeah, it's a positive thing for the German museum. That could be also a reason why they can open so early.
Yeah, I think that felt like the biggest difference. In 80% of our income is earned, and with reduced visitors, that does affect the viability of reopening as early as we would like to. And so that's something that we need to reflect on in the UK, really, about the vital difference.
Yeah, very much so. Any other questions? Alistair.
Hi, David, I just wanted to reiterate Liz's thanks as well. It's been absolutely fascinating. And I just have been thinking a lot about the notion of trust, the trust of our audiences, the trust of our staff and our volunteers as we reopen, and how vital that is. And I just wondered if you'd any experiences of perhaps surveying any of those communities after you reopened, after museums reopened in Germany, or perhaps even before, and whether you've any sense of where there've been issues of trust, where there've been challenges, perhaps failures along the way, because one of the key decisions for us is, how do we make sure we get it right first time? Should we perhaps open just to friends, just to members initially, to make sure we're really working with audiences that know us to get it right first? And I'd value any thoughts that you have.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. The only experience we had was, as an experience on national experience, was the International Museum Day, because it was very interesting, and we don't have 100% of the evaluation, but some first result. We decided to make this International Museum Day only online. But 2 weeks before, the first museum opened. So after 2 weeks, we had 550 museums. And we asked these 550 museums how it was. And they had some visitors, not a lot, but they were, I mean, it's just, I don't have numbers, but the reaction was, or the feedback was, that a lot of visitors coming to this date said, we were expecting that. So I think that are the core visitors. There are no new visitors, of course. There are really people that were visiting the museum very often. I mean, it's obvious, huh? They people that have really a big connection with the museum. So the idea you have, I find it a very good idea to say you begin with the friends of the museum, or with some groups that exist already. That is a very good idea. But what I can say, it takes time. You can, of course, wait a long time to open the museum when the tourists are back, etc., etc. But the first weeks will be weeks with big financial loss. I cannot imagine another way. It's not possible for the first day to have a huge line. It's not possible because of healthy reasons, but it's not realistic.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
That's great information. Lots to think about. Have we got any further questions? Just checking through.
I have a question, maybe back to Elizabeth. I'm interested in the situation you have. Of course, you don't want to open now because the financial loss would be too high. But what about the people that were working in the museum? How do you pay them? Are they in standby? Are they laid off? What is the situation? Oh, yes.
Can you hear me again? Yeah, again, really interesting question. So we have benefited from the government's furlough job retention scheme that has been used over here. So whereas we have lost 80% of our income, almost the same percentage of staff are in furlough benefiting from that scheme.
Okay.
So being able to save some money, but obviously that's only on staff salary. So what we're losing is the majority of our income. We were the organisation that did the robot. I don't know if you've heard about this, these robot tours. We're doing virtual video conferencing robot tours. So we've kept connection with our public and tried to create a demand for renewing of membership to keep some income going. But we are in the privileged position of either keeping staff on or paying them up to 80% of their salary through the furlough scheme. But we were not in a financial position to top up the salaries. The challenge we're going to have and the difficulty is what happens at the end of furlough. And our government yet are making very good gestures that it's going to continue until the autumn and show some flexibility from July. But they've not said what the detail is yet, which makes it very difficult to plan. But what I expect is we're going to hit a harder financial set of challenges as furlough unravels and as we take back the liability of our staff. And we'll either have to take decision to make people redundant, to retain them but pay them and bear the cost of that, or somewhere in between. And I think the most interesting thing linked to this that you have raised in my mind is Germany's commitment to retaining the vision and the offer. And I think over here, the focus has been on sustaining ourselves, staying alive, to refocus, to actually have quite a different offer. And my biggest concern is I've got staff in the wrong place, potentially doing the wrong job for the future organisation. And I don't know whether you've experienced that about the impact on the changing needs of your staff and the skill sets and how that has settled down.
It's very interesting to say. Before I answer your question, something I would like to say is something about this German model. It's not always the best situation. I mean, in the short term, it's going well, but you speak the rest of the economy, like in your museum, the rest of the economy, excepted the cultural economy in Germany, has short time work. So these schemes to that the government pays a part of the salary of people that have to work less hours. So we don't have that now in the museum sector because they are public institutions. But these schemes are expecting for next year.
Okay.
So when we really would like to reopen normally, we could be affected by less people because the public sector will have to save money. So we will be in a completely different situation. You had to wait long, and after maybe you can open completely and normally and redevelop your offer. And possibly, I hope it won't be so black and white, but in Germany, it could be the real crisis next year. The other thing about your question about oh, I'm sorry. What was? I'm sorry. I don't wanted to say. You asked a question at the end of your.
I was talking about staff being in the wrong place.
Yes, exactly. The reorganization. That is very interesting. In my position, I see in Germany and actually all over Europe, because we did in the NEMO survey, we asked some about the future of the institution. I see something like 50% of the museum want to come back to the situation before, and 50% are really thinking about being completely renewed. And I feel myself, it's not very often, but very Swiss, because I think the right way is exactly in the middle of that. You cannot completely reinvent the museum sector and museum because we are not startups. At the same time, all these people that say, after the crisis, it will be everything okay like before. That would be a little bit a pity, actually, because it's a good opportunity to think about new offers and new organizations.
Thank you.
Just before we end, Yasmin's got a question. Yasmin.
Hello.
Hi, Yasmin.
Yeah. Hello. I'm interested. I work for Leicester Print Workshop, and we have a studio where small numbers of people come in to make their own fine art prints. And we've been talking about returning back to work on a very small scale, but our staff are understandably very nervous of doing so because they have been working from home, as all of us have been doing as well, and are nervous about going back into a shared space. And I wondered whether there were any experiences from the German museums on this line.
Yeah, they have, so 3 levels, I would say. The first level is the level of the legal level. In different regions, you have different rules, but usually the rule is to have 1.5 meters between people, so the whole time. And if we cannot be sure that you have 1.5 meters, you should wear a mask, a protective mask. That is it's slightly different from region to region, but the rules are in this direction. That is the first thing. Then you have every institution have different internal rules. Some of them say, like the example I gave before, only half of the staff come on specific days and the other half on the other day. It's not specific to the museum. It's actually what the restaurants are doing in Berlin now, because they want to be sure that they can offer their services, because the restaurants are also reopened. The restaurants is a good example. All the restaurants in Berlin, so not all, but I would say 50–60% of the restaurants are open, and they have half of the seats and tables. It's actually a great service, because you feel like in a 5-star hotel, because there are a lot of place, a lot of space between the places. And I think that is not, it could be interesting also for the museum to prepare to have this kind of premium or luxury services. And so for the working people, of course, a big place with 10 or a small office with 10 people is maybe not the setting of the future. And then you have the third level, that is the private level of fear or risk. Just in our small team, we are 16 people here in the German Museum Association. You have people, so mothers with small children, they are absolutely not afraid of nothing. I have to say to them, yeah, please keep the distance, just 1 meter, 1.5 meters, please, but it's absolutely okay. And you have other people, not in our staff, but in the museum in Hamburg, for example, people that are so afraid from the beginning of the crisis that they are officially ill. And they go every 2 weeks to their doctor, and the doctor give them 2 weeks more, just because they are, I mean, this is like quite a psychologically issue, but you have really these both poles, and I would say a management challenge is to find, to bring these people in the middle. But this impression of safety is really difficult to, it's very psychological. Every day I come to the office now, because I'm in the office with the train, and the train is full of people. Wearing a mask is officially so compulsory. But I would say you are 20% of the people without mask. And if you ask them, could you please wear your mask? Sometimes they say, no, Corona doesn't exist. So in the daily life, we have this polarization of these feelings.
Yeah, that's really interesting to learn. And it's certainly, there's a huge wealth of things to grapple with as we manage public and staff expectations going forward. David, it's been really fascinating to hear your insights and learn from your experience so far. You know, it's as you've already alluded, it's a long journey ahead of us all over many years, but to have an opportunity to hear about the German experience really, certainly from my own perspective, helped me to think about what are the key things I need to think about. And certainly, I think the biggest thing I've drawn from this is about keeping the messaging really simple for the staff and for our visitors, so that we can go forward in a really sort of clear position. Thank you everyone for joining us. The recording of this will be available on CVAN South East's website in due course. And I think Ollie will look to share key highlights, but we won't do minutes of the meeting. It will be available to review again or to pass to colleagues and so on. So a big thank you. Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure to have you visit us in the UK today.
Yeah, thank you very much to have invited me. I hope this specific experience could be helpful for you. And we are all on the same boat, but I hope in a couple of months we will have a certain normality.
Yeah, well, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, everyone.